Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. We're working on a super fun impressionistic landscape today using some techniques that I love to use. Washing in color, changing up the color, changing the composition, all that good stuff. Giving you a reference photo, and I show you how I change the reference photo, just cutting off a certain part of it and changing it up. How I make these simple, tree leaves using like a sea sponge and all this good stuff. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And Patreon members get the extended version, so if you're a Patreon member, look forward to that. So without further ado, let's get started. So like I said, I have the link to the photograph and description of this photo. I've chopped it off here, so this is another thing you need to learn. Like, look at the composition of the photo. You don't have to paint everything you see exactly how it is. You can cut off some of it for your composition. Either way, either you're cutting off this side or not. I didn't want to show the tree kind of in the middle. I wanted to show it kind of off to the right. You could change the flower colors, etc. But I like the placement of the flowers. The tree I kind of scrunched down. I might change the tree completely. All that good stuff. I'm painting on Fabriano 7x10 block here. And I'm changing the sky color. Let's have a fun, bright, pretty sky. You want to paint like an impressionistic kind of painting, because that's what it looks like in this photograph, this impressionistic style field. Let's do some kind of painting that would go with that. So I'm going to grab my 16 round Neptune series from Princeton. I'm going to loosen up some ultramarine blue deep. The consistency, what does that mean? The paint color, how much water I put in the pigment here. It's going to be the tea. I'm going to add a little bright rose to this, so it's purple. I'm going to make a sky kind of pretty colors, purpley pink, and why not? Because we can do whatever we want. It's our picture. So there you go. So you can do wet on dry, wet on wet. I always kind of lift it up and hold it and grab my paper. I'm doing wet on dry. I'm just going to go like this, add some water, a little bit of pink here. So it gets a nice purple. Grab some more water again. Ultramarine blue deep. So we got this purpley bluish colored sky. Really kind of bright and intense. Move that paint a little bit this way, a little bit that way. Leaving a little white for the clouds. And the color of the sky will get lighter on the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit more rose. I want to mix it up this time. A little more purple. Throw that in there. Very kind of colorful, pretty purpley blue sky. Not your typical color. Impressionistic, remember? And then I'll kind of lightly wash the color down below. So it could be purple for you, it could be just blue. And we're gonna lift this because I want the color to be much lighter on the bottom. And I'm leaving those like dark whitish edges. If you don't want them, you can kind of fill in a little color, which I'm gonna do. Ooh. Get a little bit more intense with my color here. You want to do this quickly though. You don't want to go back and forth too much. All right, I have this wonderful bluish sky. Many different colors, playing with the color for this watercolor. This is a very light green. You could do this. It's going to be difficult to have that light green on top of the dark color, purple, bluish color. A couple little tricks. You can lift the paint or just paint it darker. I would lift the paint maybe with a sea sponge. So those areas will be lighter in color. My sea sponge has some paint on it, so I'm going to remove some paint on it. So that you can lift it up and put the green on there. Let's see what happens. It's going to fold back into it a little bit. So when you put green on there, it won't be as dark. See, I'm just lifting some color where I'm going to put some of the greenery up in here. So you kind of mimic where you're going to put the greens for the tree. with the sea sponge and tapping back on my paper towel, removing the color. You see where I'm going with that? So when that green is put on there, those areas will be light. It's a better way for me than to sit there and paint all that masking fluid. It's just a way to kind of play with that, lifting a little bit of the color with the sea sponge that I'll put down. All right, I'm gonna let it sit there and dry, and we'll come back to it with the lovely green grass and trees, etc. So you notice when mine dried, I had this weird kind of line happening here. I don't even know why that happened, but we can kind of finagle this, play around with that, and it won't bother us. Like even here, the pigment, a little bit thicker pigment gets stuck in this one. Again, tree branches can change all that and you won't even notice it. So, of course, I'm gonna grab my 12 round now, mix up some greens. So cadmium yellow deep, a little Prussian blue, or you could use peacock. I wouldn't suggest ultramarine blue or cobalt because it'll make a kind of very muted green. Of course, you always want to start off light, and if you don't use these two kind of blues, the greens will be very, very muted. And we're not going for that. So I'm going to just put that bright green in here. You see this little line. And again, we're not following this to the T. I'm going to just add some more yellow in here. Got it really loose and wet. Put all the color in here. Grabbing the 12, just kind of throwing the green in. Leave a little bit of color here. You could even just go over this too if you want to. The tree color is going to be much darker. Just doing a simple wash of this lovely bright green. Right? So now it's pretty damp. You get a little bit thicker with the color. Prussian blue, yellow. I'll add a little burnt sienna, just to dull down my color a little bit. So it's a little thicker consistency, which means the paint's not moving as much. Less water in here, right? Kind of put some paint in here. It's getting a little bit darker. We talk about consistency a lot, and it really helps to understand how much water you should stick in your paint, right? So it's going to bleed a little bit because it's still very wet on this paper, but it's the paint, it's thicker, so it's not going to bleed as much. We can add some deeper color here. See that? Leaving this still a little bit light. Going to add some more deep depth here. You can play around with this a little bit more. You see it's much darker from the photograph in here. But again, we're not following it. We're using it as an inspiration. We don't have to follow this to a T. I'm going to put some greens up in here. And I'm just taking the tip of my brush and kind of wiggling some darker greens here. They should dissipate fairly nicely. If they don't, you can just kind of add a little bit more watercolor in here. Like some bright yellow. I'm going to water this down a little bit. Throw that in there. It's a little deeper. To play around. Okay, we can get even deeper still. Adding some blue, burnt sienna. Now it's a very green, very bluish green. You can add more burnt sienna, it's going to dull it down. See that? Changes that green color. It's a little bit deep right here. Some back here. Now the tree's going to get really dark, so it's going to blend. And keep those greens. We can kind of clean off our brush. I'll just kind of blend some of this green here. It's like a line that stops, right? And here, blending the green. Just keeping that dark area. Going down here a little bit more. Add some deeper green in the bottom. Get that burnt sienna in there. blue. And I'm just taking the brush and doing some little streaks like this, little grasses. Down here, a little bit in here. They're going to kind of blend. It's very wet and bleed. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. So trees back here, you can just make them little blobby trees, I call them. I'm just taking even this brush. I added a little bit more yellow. And you can kind of just push down on your brush and kind of wiggle it back and forth. Same thing here. Some of them are pretty light. My tree looks a little bit darker. I might grab some more yellow. Tap it back on my paper towel. And get this just a little bit lighter. And just kind of wiggling it. They're not evergreen trees. They're just kind of these little... You can put a line down if you have to guide it. And then just tap it on each side. See, I'm just going to tippy tap on both sides. And then tap in the middle a little bit. Right, and there's a tree here. Now, my paint is fairly wet. I don't want it this wet for this kind of situation. So you want to grab the tube paint, a little Prussian blue, fairly light but thicker, right? And I would use a somewhat stiffer brush, a Princeton 8 long round for this, for the tree. And you're going to kind of roll it like this, or if you have a small sea sponge, I'll grab my one that was kind of wet, still got some orange paint on it, or another one that's haven't been used for a while and it's got green on it, so I might use this one. Loosen it up, grab your paint and tap. Now that's pretty wet, I need it thicker, so I'll mix up some thicker paint. Again, cadmium yellow deep, Prussian blue, nice thick light green paint. Grab it on my thing and boom. You've made this little tree super simple and easy. 2 seconds. Same thing with the big old tree here. Remember we left a little bit of white for a reason, so now we can show up more. You can put those little clusters. You can kind of push down. You're kind of twisting and pushing down, and we'll put the branches in between some of this. It's so easy to paint lovely green leaves with the sea sponge. Look at that, 2 seconds. You always want to start off light first. So I got to mix up more paint. I would mix the paint. I wouldn't mix the paint with the sea sponge. Here we go again. Get a little bit lighter. Okay. Sea sponge. And we're going back in here. Right, and there's some greenery here. Because in watercolor we work light to dark. You want to get those lights in first and slowly build your darks. See, I'm adding the green here. You can go off to the side a little bit. So now we removed that white here, remember? Beginning. Add little touches out that way. You're starting to not really notice that as much. Let's see if we can add some just for the heck of it. Yeah, it's gone. You don't even see it now. We made the tree a little bit bigger. Add a little bit more stuff. Push down. And now we can add a little bit more depth and color. It doesn't have to be exactly like the tree in the picture, but you know, it's nice to... I'm adding a little bit darker medium green now. Super fun. You can kind of squinch it to do the little trees. So let's see if I can lift this up to show you. Squinch it on its side. See how I did those little trees? Same thing with here. Like you can just take a little piece part here, squinch. And then of course on the side tree here. Making your life simpler, isn't it? Sea sponge. Now we'll get a little bit darker, adding the Prussian blue and the burnt sienna. Go back and add some yellow. Prussian blue, burnt sienna, yellow. That color is much deeper than what we put down before. I'm going to play around with this. Don't go too crazy. but push down on it. See? Now you have more depth happening because you added some deeper greens. Gotta love a sea sponge. Creates great leaves if you have a hard time painting leaves. Again, more depth, right? It's really kind of cool. And go down in here. We'll add the trunk in a bit. But I think it did its job, right? And here, remember that area? It's like it never happened. Lots of ways to cover things. If you grab some more yellow right in here on the tip, you can kind of go in here and throw in that lighter green kind of bush happening here. And a little bit more green. But we don't want to do Sea Sponge City, right? We want to make, we just want to use it for here and there. Don't want to make it a crutch for you. All right, we're going to move on to the tree and the flowers. Simple color to mix trees. I'll use ultramarine blue deep and burnt sienna. A hollow. Get our nice color tree. A little bit more burnt sienna on this side. Loosen it up. It should be a little bit lighter on the right, a little bit darker on the left. So we're going to start to put in our color here. And go around some of these little leaves we put in here. Because remember, with watercolor, you can't paint it like wash or acrylic. You can't paint the light on the dark. You have to kind of work around that. So I have this nice light color. I mean, I watered the same color, two colors, ultramarine blue deep and burnt sienna. Made this deeper brown, added more burnt sienna here, and just lightened it with by adding the water. And you're just kind of filling in these little areas. Just kind of mushing, mashing, going up to the tree here. And then up further, we'll start to do branches. Get a little bit darker, because you know the shadow of the leaves is going to make this darker brown. And you'll take this and you kind of move over here and add the branches, peeking through. Up in here. It doesn't have to look exactly like the photograph. Please do not get stuck on this. You're using it for inspiration. You're not using it for exactness. Right? We got that tree in there. You can. I'll take a liner brush too, and I'll add some more fun in there. Get a little tree branch going there. Get a little darker on this left side. Adding that darker color on the left side. Just going to help enhance it more. See, now you see like the sun's coming on the right. Now in the tree there, it has less tree trunk. Mine has more. Again, inspiration doesn't have to be perfect. We might add some more green on top of that. And you can just kind of blend it. So we have a kind of a straight line. We want to blend it a little bit. So I'm going to grab some water and just kind of blend it a little bit. And go across. And so it looks a little more natural instead of this super sharp line. Adding a little brown in my greenery here. I'll take my liner brush, which I love, to make some more branches. This is the Princeton No. 4 Umbria, but you can find all kinds of liners. And my trick is just kind of wiggle out some nice branches like this. And we can throw in some greenery on those. Get a little bit darker still by adding some more pigment. Ultramarine blue deep and burnt sienna. And we get some nice branch color. And like I said, you can add little leaves to those other ones that are kind of jetting out. Peeking through all the foliage that we have here. Another trick to add a few little branches down here on the bottom. Like again, the photograph doesn't show it, but we're having fun with this. We don't need to have exactly like it is. Look how great that looks. And then of course our tree over here. Now we kind of lost a lot of it, but we can put some of the branches in here. You don't see much of it anyway. Twigs kind of happening. And there's our tree for that one. Lovely. Go back to our Princeton 8 long round. Like I said, yellow, blue, burnt sienna. Add some greenery. Just kind of, this is where we add the thick, kind of roll your brush, tap it around, leaves here. Or go back and use the sea sponge. Kind of play with both. It's nice to play with both. Right? Mix the two, have fun, put some grasses in. So I'll go grab a little bit more blue. Using the long round, just kind of do the swooping motion like this. Some grasses. We don't want soldier grass. What do I mean by soldier grass? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, this sweeping this way. Put them in the back. Get a little bit deeper back here with the color. Right? This sweeping in this formation up here. I'm going to be adding some yellow pigment and some white watercolor. Now it does look like looks like an eyebrow, isn't it? We can kind of play with this. Move it this way and that way. Grass is in front of it. We can just use this, like I said, for inspiration. We're not going to follow the photograph to a T. We're just using the tree and the colors. This is what I want you to do when you're out and about and you see a beautiful field. Grasses. Kind of playing with this. Right? If the eyebrow is bothering you, we can go back in here and just kind of mush in a little bit deeper color, and it will kind of dissipate that eyebrow look. Right? It's like it never happened. More of a shadow than an eyebrow. All right. Now, this is where we have fun. Get impressionistic. You can splatter by just covering your beautiful tree and some of this lovely greenery here, back here. The yellow color you see here, we can keep that. You can add lilac. I'm going to take some of the yellow. Just add a teeny bit of water to it. Excuse me. And how I do it is I take the brush and tap it on another thing, either a pencil, brush, or whatever. And if you want to cover your tree too, maybe I'll take a little piece of paper that covers my tree trunk. Right? And there we go. Does all the work for you without painting all those little dots. It looks a little more natural, but we want the paint kind of thick on the thick end. Look at that. Simple as pie, right? A little bit thicker, just enough to move it. Now that had orange. If you want to keep the orange, we'll just add a little bit of cadmium red light. It's going to make it orange. We've got the orange kind of coming down here. I'll add a teeny bit of water to it. Now, get a little bit more water. If it was a bigger brush, it makes bigger splatters. So if I took my number 12 brush and loosen that up, got the yellow and the red. It should make a bigger splatter. The front. Somewhat bigger. Just one way of doing it. We also have white watercolor from Winsor and Newton. I'll grab that out of my bag here for the white daisies. It's all watercolor. And they're fairly small over here in front of the tree. And some are on front of the tree, so we can kind of lift up the tree a little bit. Like that. And I'll get my brush. Add a little bit of water to that. Making your life easier. and then painting all those little flowers, right? Let's see how it looks. Similar, right? And then of course it really kind of, there's a lot of yellow clustered in there. And even the white, you can just take some white and just kind of tap some bigger ones. Clustery. They're almost like Queen Anne's lace. I think that's what it looks like to me in the photograph far away. And we can add some stems to this too. And as far as yellow goes, again, it's much more clustered in the back. So you can go back over with your brush, kind of fill these in and get that cluster of yellow. And we get some peaking orangey ones. So grab your two colors and just tap and add that color. Again, tip tap. Look at how cute this is. Up in here, this bright orange peeking through. Really kind of fun, sweet. I really picked it because of the flowers, the placement of the trees, all that good stuff. You know, here again, my yellow's kind of dissipated. You can put a little bit of the white watercolor with that yellow. Oh, and tippy tap. Now you see it, now you don't. And add that. All the little tricky tricks. There's some yellow a little bit peeking back here. Sweet, isn't it? Have some kind of peeking through here. Even a little bit of white would be kind of cute. Just little dots here and there. And then of course you'll end the whole wonderful thing by adding in some grass. Again, Prussian blue and yellow. A little burnt sienna, umber. So little tall grasses kind of take. I like the liner brush because it makes those tiny little grasses underneath the white. Can put some in here. Cluster it. Please do not do soldier grass. A few little sprays coming down from the flowers. Get a little bit darker too. Have some, you know, fun with this. Get a little bold under some of these balloons. All that good stuff. Just giving you some more tools to have fun in the toolbox here. This is how you would like to paint something that was a little impressionistic. You would add purpley skies, change it up a little bit. You see, we didn't change too much. We changed the sky. We changed the composition a little bit. You can go back in and add a little bit of, I love this brush for all kinds of things. Even just come back in here and just kind of finagling some of the trees. See how you just move fast, like a ninja on the palette. Adding in some, again, more depth with the deeper blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, just to get some depth back here. Squint your eye, it's always good to do that. And you have this beautiful impressionistic looking style painting. All these techniques building up to that. The sea sponge, the colors, the way you're going to just put the flowers in. I just did simple splatter technique. Saves you a lifetime of painting tiny little dots, right? The impressionistic, I wonder if they actually try to do that. Well, Seurat had pointillism, and just taking this lovely liner brush and just going in here and grabbing some deeper browns and blues and getting a little fun with this back here. Adding in some more depth. And that's all you do. Don't get too crazy with the grasses here. You know, I'm going to go add a little bit more greens and some lovely here. Mishmash of grass. You can make yourself a little bit nutso putting grass in. So there you go. I hope you enjoy this. If you enjoy this, let me know. Leave a comment below. If you're a Patreon member, we're going to do the extended part. If you want to be a Patreon member, click the link in the description box to join my Patreon. We have exclusive tutorials, extended tutorials, Facebook group, all this good stuff. You guys get first dibs on my workshops and retreats. So I just sold out my Portugal retreat, and I'm going to be launching another one coming up soon in the fall. So if you want to be the first dibs on that, become a Patreon member. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you'll learn some techniques on how to make things, you know, take a photograph and change it up for yourself to make it more interesting and pretty or whatever, exciting. Use a sea sponge if you haven't used a sea sponge for trees. Play with the liner brush for grasses and branches. Play just wet on wet with the background and then bleeding in the color and then splattering some of the lovely colors that we have here. All right, thank you so much. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.